Shalom. All praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakah Kodash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the bishops, and the elders of GMS who rules well. Peace and salutations to the elect. My name is Aina. The title of this video is The Destruction of Black Wall Street. All right. And basically, um, Esau Edom, he's fearful, right? And how he is moving is showing that the things that he's doing now in these last days. Let's grab Habakkuk 2. And Habakkuk 2 pretty much, it goes into Esau, right, the so-called white man, and it talks about the vision, towards the end of days. So I'll just get it from the top. Habakkuk 2 and 1. Now, Habakkuk 1 and 1, Habakkuk is asking, how long shall he cry, right? How long shall he cry to the Lord? Now, grab Habakkuk 1 and 1. It says, the burden which Habakkuk the prophet did see. O Lord Yahweh, how long shall I cry, and thou wilt not hear? Even cry unto thee of violence, and thou wilt not save. Right, and we're crying unto the Lord now in these last days because of the wicked, right? Esau, Edom, and all the abominations, that's being done in the midst of the world, basically, because the world, Job 9:24 says the earth was given into the hand of the wicked, right? So Esau, Edom is out here committing all type of sins, basically, right? And we're crying out to the Lord. It says, why doest thou show me iniquity and cause me to behold grievance? For spoiling and violence are before me, and there are that rise up strife and contention. Therefore the law is slack, and judgment doeth never go forth. For the wicked doeth compass about the righteous, therefore wrong judgment proceedeth. Right? So wrong judgment is being proceeding because the wicked is ruling, right? Just like I gave you Job 9:24. So he's asking, how long shall I cry? And then we have chapter 2 where Yahweh answers the prophets, right? So this is something that we look for, right? Habakkuk 2 and 1, it says, I will stand upon my watch and set me upon a tower and will watch to see what he will say unto me and what I shall answer when I am reproved. It says, and the Lord Yahweh answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables that he may run that readeth it, right? And that's what we're doing here in these last days, right? We're running with the correct message of what the scriptures say, right? And it's something that Esau Edom is afraid of, right? So he's coming down with great wrath in these last days to try to offset prophecy, trying to destroy the Israelites, right? Trying to cut off the name of Israel from being in remembrance. It says, for the vision is yet from appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie, though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry, right? And we're in a time now where it's no longer tarrying, the vision is here, right? We're at the end. Scripture say, behold, the end of all things has come, right? And Esau, Edom is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followed, right? So, that's why, like I keep saying, Esau is terrified. The heathen are terrified because the Israelites, are waking back up to who we are. It says, behold, his soul, which is lifted up, is not upright in him. All right, so this is a wicked individual. It says, but the just shall live by his faith. It says, yeah, also because he transgresses by wine, he is a proud man, not to keep it at home, who enlarges his desire as hell, and is as death, cannot be satisfied. But gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Right, so as you can see, it's going into Esau. It says, jump down a little bit, verse 8, because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, of the city, and of all that dwell therein. It says, woe to him that covet an evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. Thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people, and hast sinned against thy soul. Right, so this is what Esau Edom does, and is currently doing in these last days. It says, for the stone shall cry out of the wall, and the beam out of the timber shall answer. Right, so basically the whole of creation in these last days is crying out against this devil, right? That's why you have animals beaching themselves. That's why you have the nations in uproars, right? Well, the animals in the ocean beaching themselves, but you have all animals, right? Animals are even moving on to that LGBTQ. You know, how crazy is that? So that's the work of the devil. It says, "Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood and established a city by iniquity." And that's exactly how Esau Edom built up America, Babylon the Great. And that's something that he's trying to revert back to here in these these last days. It says, "Behold, is it not of the Lord Yahweh of hosts that the people shall labor in the very fire, and the people shall weary themselves for very vanity?" Right. So, basically you can get Psalm 39:11. The inward thought is that the house shall continue, from generation to generation. It says, NOT, has not the Lord Yahweh of heaven's armies promised that the wealth of nations will turn to ashes? They work so hard, but all in vain, right? And the elder brother Malcolm of GMS Chicago posted a short today showing, the decay of Babylon the Great and how, the cities are old, right? You have forestry, cracking through the rocks, so that they're laboring pretty much in vain. Because it's all going to go to destruction. It's all for naught, basically, the work that they're doing, all the building and all of that. It says, "For the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of Yahweh as the waters cover the sea." So the information is going to come out, right? Though they try to hide this information, though they try to cut off people, though they try to cut off the Israelites from being a nation, the information is going to come out. Let me grab this email too right here. It says, "For as the waters fill the sea, the earth will be filled with an allness of the glory of the Lord Yahweh Bashmi Shai." Right? He's doing that now in these last days with what? The vision, right? Pursuant to prophecies. And the prophets are bringing out those prophecies, right? Proclaiming it, on the housetops. It says, "Woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, that putteth thy bottle to him, and maketh him drunken also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness." It says, "Thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory." So, Esau Edom is going to get that shameful spewing on his glory. All right, let me grab this in the NLT. Habakkuk 2:15. So it says, "What sorrow awaits you who make your neighbors drunk? You force your cup on them so you can gloat over their shameful nakedness." Right, and a big part of that is what you have now, the Diddy and all of that, right? The Diddy situation, all the situations with the so-called black world leaders, the singers, actresses, and things like that. But Esau covers up his own wicked deeds, right? You have the Epstein's list and all of those individuals of high-ranking profiles that are tied to that they're no longer talking about. It says, "But soon it will be your turn to be disgraced. Come, drink and be exposed. Drink from the cup of the Lord's judgment, and all your glory will return into shame." See, so that's the point. So the title of this video is "The Destruction of Black Wall Street." Let me grab this real quick. Is it 32? All right, so this is what you call it. I got this DeepSeek, right? And basically the DeepSeek is something like ChatGPT, but it's the Chinese version, right? Because China is what America wants to be. China has their digital system set up, their AI tracking, right? Their social credit score and all of that. So they're admitting that China is better than them, in a way. So the scriptures also talk about how has the hammer of the whole earth fallen, right? Because Babylon was once that great city, but we're at the end of Babylon the Great, right? And their glory is fading, right? So now shameful spewing is being put on them. So I'm thinking DeepSeek might be better. I don't know. Maybe maybe it's the same thing. I don't know. Anyway, about the ball. It says, "Destruction of Black Wall Street is plain." This is DeepSeek. "The destruction of Black Wall Street, the pauperous Greenwood district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in 1921 was the result of a violent racial massacre fueled by systematic racism." So that's something that's coming back now in these last days. Donald Trump is pushing that out with deletion of DEI and also militarizing the police officers, giving them immunity, right, along with all these executive orders and bills, right? We can already see that he's targeting, what is it? The northern tribes. Your Mexican, dem, Ephraim. I can't even I don't know the word. The DR. The DR. All right. So he's targeting all our brothers, and pretty soon that same thing's gonna come to the Judah. So it says in 1921 was the result of a violent racial massacre fueled by systematic racism, economic jealousy, and a fabricated incident that escalated into mob violence. Here's a detailed breakdown of the key factors. Right, it was fear, also because what the so-called black man was rising up in society, right? And Esau Edom didn't want that, and now they're saying the same thing. Now that they're saying what? Oh, it's because of the so-called black man that we have all these problems. When really and truly, these Edomites are the highest and across all boards of crime, right? What is it? What's the thing where you get reparations or something, government assistance and all of that? They're high in all of that, right? And plus the Amalekites, the JWOs, are the biggest recipient of that, because they receive billions of dollars, right? They even have things here where they're protected in America, laws that protect them. You can't speak against them and things like that. All right, so anyway, we got a few bullet points here, 5 of them. I'm gonna read them. It says racial tensions and white supremacy. That's what they're talking about. That's what they're trying to bring back. It says Greenwood was one of the most affluent black communities in the U.S. with over 191 businesses, luxury homes, and institutions like theaters and hospitals. Its success contrasted sharply with the racial oppression of the Jim Crow era, inciting resentment among white people, basically, right? It says historians note that Greenwood's prosperity challenged the racist notion of black inferiority, making it a target, right? So they didn't want to see the so-called black man rise up to power. It's the same way they don't want to see it now, but it's happening, right? And they're coming out with great wrath to try to turn this back. So then the point 2 said there was an incident. So this is what DeepSeek said. Y'all can ask ChatGPT or whatever, ask Google. It says the massacre was triggered by an encounter. Verse point 2 says the elevator incident and media incitement. The massacre was triggered by an encounter between Dick Rowland, a black teenager, and Sarah Page, a white elevator operator, on May 30th, 1921. Accounts vary, but the Tulsa centralized the incident with the headline, "Nab Negro for attacking girl in elevator," igniting rumors of an attempted rape. It says no evidence supported the claim, and Page later declined to prosecute. But the article spurred a white mob to demand a Rowland's lynching, right? And basically, most of the times these things come out, the bitch is a prostitute, some type of whore, or something. She was down with the plan, or whatever the case may be. Even back then, right? A lot of these women really want to get with Jane, right? It's no secret, there's no secret at all. So the point 3 says mob violence and official complicity. It says armed attacks at white mob, including deputized civilians. That's what I want to go to in law enforcement. So that's what Trump is doing now in these days. He's deputizing or militarizing law enforcement, pretty much going back to the roots. It says looted and burned 35 city blocks, dropping incendiary bombs from planes and shooting residents. You see that? It's kind of what they're doing over there in the Gaza Strip. So-called a certain individual did something, but you're leveling the whole area. So they're going back to the roots, right? This is who they are, the so-called white man. Right? They're the individuals that dropped the first bombs in the world, on the Japan, right? Just the whole land. They couldn't win the battle, so they dropped bombs. It says failure to protect police and the National Guard arrested black residents instead of stopping the violence. See, that's the police. It says over 6,000 black Tulsans were detained in camps. Hey, camps. They bringing the camps back too. You got El Salvador, Guantanamo Bay, as the lady, the press secretary says all the time. It says death and destruction. Estimates suggest 300 plus deaths, 1,250 homes burned, and 1.8 million in property losses. It says equivalent to 27 million today. See, so that's what happens. You just let the so-called black man, woman and child prosper in their own environment, right? They're gonna come up, right? But anyway, Esau gonna have that. Point 4 says economic jealousy and systematic racism. It says Greenwood's self-sufficiency, where black dollars circulated 30 times before leaving the community, threatened white economic dominance. Yeah, we can see that because America's in super debt, right? Super heavy debts. And matter of fact, get that right here because it goes into that. I actually skipped that. I think it's 5. Let me grab the KJV. It's probably safe for me too. Yeah, 6. It says Habakkuk 2 and 6. Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his? How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. Right, and this thick clay goes into the word Ibatya, which is heavy debt. See, America is poor as hell. Right, they don't have the money for anything. But when it comes time to war, they got all the money in the world. So Abatya, it goes into weight of pledges, heavy debts, right? And that's America for you. They say it's the wealthiest country in the world. And the one that's the most in debt. So it says the massacre erased generational wealth with insurance companies refusing claims due to riot clauses. Survivors like James Durant described losing homes and businesses, exacerbating racial wealth gaps. Yeah, they was upset because we was doing good all by ourselves, So they're coming back to this, right? They're trying to come back hard on us, pursuant to Revelation 12 and 12. It says for decades, the massacre was omitted from history books. They was trying to hide it, It says a 2001 state commission confirmed the event's brutality, but reparations were never paid, right? Which we don't want. The scriptures say, what it says here, and that's better, in my opinion. I'm cool waiting. Zephaniah 3 and 8, let me grab this NLT. Because Yahushua's going to come and destroy you devils. All right, with nuclear destruction and fire from the chariots that he's going to be pulling up in. The things that you call the orbs in the sky, yeah, that's the angels of the Lord, Yahweh, right, visiting this place. Zephaniah 3 and 8, it says, therefore be patient, says the Lord Yahweh. Soon I will stand and accuse these evil nations. For I have decided to gather the kingdoms of the earth and pour out my fiercest anger and fury on them. See, so we all good over here. No reparations needed. We're going to wait on our Lord, Yahweh Shai. All the earth will be devoured by the fire of my jealousy. You would have been better off just giving those reparations. Anyway. It says the term riot was later replaced with massacre to reflect the one-sided violence. Right. This is a one-sided violence from the evil, wicked rulers of the world. The so-called white man. Legacy. It says the destruction of Black Wall Street exemplifies how racial violence and systematic oppression dismantle Black prosperity. Efforts to rebuild were stemmed by discrimination, and the community never fully recovered. Right, and to be honest, there is no community. We're waiting on Lord Yahweh. Right, so that's a little shameful spin on Esau's glory, right? And pretty much, you can watch, the news articles and the things that Trump is going into regarding DEI programs, regarding militarizing the police and coming after the Latino tribes out here, right? Talking about, just Just all of this stuff, just wicked. They let the people in, then they want to kick the people out. Now they talking about truck drivers got to speak fluent English and all this bullshit, right? All these hard draconian measures that they're trying to come down with now. Now that they see that they're losing power, right? That's why Revelations 11, and I'll start at just 8. Revelations 11 and 8. It says, "And their dead bodies shall lie in the streets of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified." Right? This great city is talking about America, which is also called Babylon the Great through the Spirit. Right? It says, "And they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves." So they seen us, they didn't care about us. We didn't know who we were, right? They didn't let us know that we were the Israelites or anything like that. That's what it's talking about. We was in a dead state of mind, right? That's why you have Psalms 83 that says, "Come, let us cut them off from being a nation." That's what the nations did, right? That's why we have no representatives. You have the United Nations and things like that. Every nation has a head, representing them, but our head is on the way, right? His name is Yahushua. Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, right? He's coming with a great theory for what these nations did to the Israelites. It says, "And they that dwell on the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwell on the earth." Right? These two prophets are talking about Judah, like I mentioned earlier, and Ephraim, the whole of the 12 tribes coming back together, right? So they were happy that we were in a down state, right? That we were separated, we didn't know who we were, right? But now it says 11 and 11, Revelations 11 and 11, it says, "And after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life from Yahweh entered into them." So after, a roughly 350-year period, us being put into slavery, the knowledge being beat out of us with whips, right? And all the other atrocities that they committed to us. Now we know who we are, and we know who we belong to, right? Which is Yahweh, who is the Father, and Yahushua, who is the Son, right? And they're on their way to kick the shit out of these devils for what they did to us in those days. It says, "And they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them." So the same people that knew who we were and still know who we are today see that we have risen back up to who we are, and fear is falling upon them. So they're coming down with great wrath to try to erase us, delete us, ship us off, lock us up, send forth their lies, trying to stop the great awakening that's taking place. Ezekiel 37. And I'll just I'll get the vision explained. So this is the great awakening, that came to pass. Ezekiel 37:11, it says, "Then he said unto me, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. Behold, they say our bones are dry and our hope is lost. We are cut off for our parts." It says, "Therefore prophesy and say unto them, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Behold, O my people, I will open your graves and cause you to come up out of your graves and bring you into the land of Israel." Right? So those graves was talking about a state of what? Not knowing who we were, basically being dead to who we were. But the Most High Yahweh opened up that grave, and we know who we are now, right? It says, "And ye shall know that I am the Lord Yahweh, when I have opened your graves, O my people, and brought you up out of your graves." It says, "And shall put my spirit in you, and ye shall live, and I shall place you in your own land. Then shall you know that I, the Lord Yahweh, have spoken it, and performed it, saith the Lord Yahweh." Right? So this is going to come to pass, right? And it's coming to pass now. And then ultimately, like I got Zephaniah 3 and 8, 3 and 9, 3 and 8, Yahushua is going to come and finish off America the Great Babylon, right? So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. So I'll grab this Ezekiel 37 and 9. It says, "Then said he unto me, Prophesy unto the wind, prophesy, son of man, and say to the wind, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe upon these slain, that they may live." It says, "So I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath came into them, and they lived and stood upon their feet, an exceeding great army." Right? So that's why you have now the nations, getting upset and getting fearful, and getting mad and trying to come down with great wrath, with these draconian laws. And it's something they're trying to avoid. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 6, verse 7. It says, Then answered I and said, What shall be the parting asunder of the times? Or when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? It says, And he said unto me, From Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. It says, For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So, we got next. The Israelites got next, So, just real quick, shameful stealing on the glory of Esau, Edom. He's returning back to his roots with this systematic racism, So, Lord willing, you're edified from the lesson. I'll say shalom. So, the elect, which consists of men, women, and children, shalom.